I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cultworthy Cinema Podcast. Got a very special first episode edition of a new little sub-series that we're doing on the show. At the moment, I kind of like the idea of calling it Twisted Cinema. We've also considered calling it Cultworthy After Dark. As of right now, let's say that we are still pitching what we're going to call this series, right? But to do this particular series of, let's say, twisted, underrated, dark cult films, not the happy-go-lucky ones that I cover. We're talking like the darker stuff. I've got my good friend Mario DeAngelis of Salty Horror Productions in the studio helping me do this new series. What's going on, man?
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited, and it takes a lot of work to do this type of thing, these podcasts. So thank you for having me on and being open to new ideas, because there's just so many shows and movies that just aren't talked about. And you're open to a lot of those type of memories. So I'm really excited about the one we're talking about today.
Yeah, so like with my show, I've talked about a lot of the movies that we've planned, but not like in detail.
Right.
They've been more kind of like a recommendation or a pairing with another film. I've never really gone into like the detail of like all the actors and the directors, the filmmakers, the nuances. It's more of like, hey, if you liked this movie, here's a movie that goes really well with it. Or if you like this movie, here's one that you might not have seen that plays on a similar theme. But one thing that I just really don't do that often is get into like the darker realms of horror, of intense drama, of some would say maybe even erotic thrillers and dramas in the cult series, because a lot of my guests don't feel comfortable talking about them. Because there is like some provocative nature to a lot of them, and I feel like, hey, everything should be discussed in one way or another, but I also want to respect my guests' wishes and not make them talk about a movie that they don't feel comfortable about. So that's what this whole series is about. My friend Mario is a connoisseur of horror films. He's a filmmaker himself. He's been on the show many times. But one of the things that we both agree on is that there are some darker and more disturbing films out there that I call them artsploitation movies, right?
That's a good one.
Like, they're not necessarily just there to provoke a negative response in a viewer. There is some social commentary, there's some messaging, but also being a little bit dark and twisted is kind of fun, especially for horror films. And for me, I also think that makes me feel safer and better as a human, knowing that if you see depravity on screen in the form of art and entertainment, it allows you to have that separation of reality and fantasy of like, well, at least I know I'm not that kind of twisted.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And it makes me think of so many ways to dive in. This today's movie is exactly that. It's this twisted view of reality. It takes a tale and turns it on its head and makes it super provocative, and a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about the things that are talked about in this movie. So yeah, I appreciate a lot of those kind of things, because you're right. Sometimes it's just people think people are making something to piss people off, and only Matt Parker and Trey Stone do that. South Park guys.
I should say they're the only ones that actually do it well. There's other people that try to do it, but they have the highest success
rate. Just
rate.
Do something just to upset everybody and get people talking.
Exactly.
And I don't know why people stopped talking about today's movie that we were going to discuss.
Well, I'm not sure if they stopped talking about it. I think that it goes in cycles,
That's a good point.
And I feel that with all the things going on in the political climate, with all the Epstein stuff, as people are getting a little bit more vocal about it, I feel that a subject as taboo as what this movie covers now is just kind of making its way into everyday conversation. So I would not be surprised if this film finds another reemergence in the zeitgeist of cult cinema and just cinema altogether. And that film is 1996's Freeway, Written and directed by Matthew Bright. So, what was your first introduction to this film?
That's I've been racking my brains, and I'm gonna tell you that I believe it was close to when it came out. I was trying to go back into the recess of my mind and figure out why I watched it for the first time. It was a friend of mine told me about it, and I was like, no way that this movie exists. It's got A-list actors in it, and at the time nobody was talking about it or had seen it.
Right.
It was indie when indie wasn't cool. It was past when indie films got to the mainstream because of, not just because of, but Quentin Tarantino had hit with Reservoir Dogs. Darker films were getting more popular, but Freeway was touching on all these taboo topics. Race, which we'll get to later, that I consider it now after I rewatched it recently, this secret way to talk about race relations.
So you bring a good point there, and I feel like my personal opinion of why it didn't seem as popular right when it came out is because it was marketed terribly.
It was marketed,
but it fits to your point of like, it's not that indie movies weren't cool in 1996. Right. It was actually the heyday for indie movies, but there was a particular type of indie movie, and that is exactly what you said. It was this Miramax Tarantino kind of throwback.
Yeah.
People wanted to make movies about hitmen, bank robberies, heists, or some kind of like weird couple yuppie dramas, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what indie films were from like 1993 until like the late 90s. Movies like this really play back towards the, I'm going to say, Roger Corman AIP era of exploitation movies. Movies like, let's say, Big Bad Mama.
Right.
Where it's like, there's movies about incest and pedophilia and all those crazy taboos. Yet somehow they made it kind of palatable and accessible to mainstream audiences, or let's say drive-in audiences. And Tarantino, as much as he is a fan of those exploitation films, he's never really touched on those films quite in a way in his own style of filmmaking. Right. I'd say maybe Death Proof is the closest one, right?
Oh, yeah.
A guy with a psychosexual addiction to essentially killing nubile young women in cars with his road dick to get his rocks off, right? That's the furthest he's gone in that realm of exploitation. Everything else is more kind of action, blaxploitation, samurai related. So I feel like now people might be a little bit more in tune with Freeway, but it was a slow burn. It took a while for it to catch on. Yeah. And for me, I caught it by mistake, I think on HBO in like 97 or 98. Yeah. Because it played at Sundance. It was nominated for a grand jury.
Oh, right.
But no one was buying it. No one wanted to screen it theatrically because it was so dark and dirty. So what do? You throw it on cable and VHS and eventually DVD, and over time, people kind of grow into it. And then I think it really hit its peak in like the early 2000s.
Agreed.
Especially with like Netflix by mail. Physical media was big. People were talking about the movie more. And then, like you said, it kind of trickled out.
It's the way that this movie has held on is because of multiple reasons, exactly what you said. But the casting I want to get into, like the names in this thing will blow your mind that they could even get them.
Right.
It was not Reese's blow up role, which maybe they thought. It was just another movie for Kiefer, but it was one of his best performances. Kiefer playing not a nice guy.
Right.
The villain was not common for Kiefer, but he grabbed onto this movie and they all were just like I said, the casting is like the Amanda Plummer, the list goes on and on that they were able to get for this movie. Small roles, big roles. Brooke Shields. It is just crazy because it should have been a hit.
Well, and I think that's the other part of the equation as well, is that, this is kind of Reese's biggest blow up role, but it wasn't the role that people knew her for yet,
Yet.
She had done some Disney stuff. Right. She had done Man on the Moon, which is, a wonderful little coming of age drama.
Right.
But she really didn't hit with mainstream audiences into Legally Blonde.
Correct.
And in a way, that was kind of intentional on her part. She was looking for more scripts like this. I'd say her big blow-up role was 1999's Election, where she plays Tracy Flick, because that really showed what she could do as an actress. She was kind of being selective because she wanted to be like the indie darling, right? But here's the problem with indie darlings. Once you hit mainstream, it's really hard to go back. I think Parker Posey is like the perfect example of that, where she's really stayed in a medium that really accepts her and that she's known for. But if you get Legally Blonde, it's hard to go back to indie, right? You know, they're like, what are you doing? You know? And when it comes to Kiefer, you know, we were comfortable with Kiefer playing, if not a villain, an anti-hero or a charming villain. Lost Boys, it would be a perfect example of that. Flatliners, where he's not like the best guy, but he's also not the villain. We were comfortable with that. I feel Kevin Bacon's is a very similar aspect, where we're comfortable seeing him as a hero and a villain. And if you've ever seen The Woodsman, I feel like Kevin Bacon was pretty much on Kiefer's page, like, I can play dark, I can play sinister, and I can bring a little bit of empathy to it. There's no empathy in Bob Wolverton in this movie.
No.
and there shouldn't be.
No. And it's just, those are all really good points. And yeah, when you're talking about like, you hit the nail on the head with why are we trying to get more people to watch this? Because the studio did not do its job. I'm sorry, the distributor did not do its job. The movie was made well. It was competently made. Like I said, it had names. It was essentially a road movie. It was oddly paced, but it had other names behind it on the crew, like Danny Elfman did not the whole score, but he did the theme, the main theme. And it's just crazy who they got attached to this thing.
Oliver Stone was a producer.
And Oliver Stone was a producer.
Right.
So the themes is what started freaking people out. It was a loose retelling of Little Red Riding Hood in the 90s. That was not done.
Yeah.
Now they're making 6 fucking Popeye horror movies and 10 Mickey Mouse
ones,
Popeye horror movies. And, you know, Winnie the Pooh is on number 3.
Right.
They're doing a Pooh-niverse. So, I mean, they're taking these things, but Little Red Riding Hood wasn't touched.
I think
it was weird. It's a weird movie.
It's a weird movie, but I think that it was kind of brilliant because it goes back to the things that we talked about before on the show, where like everything old is new again, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no new ideas. There is new versions of old ideas.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that it's unoriginal. I think that's incredibly original and daring to do something like that at that time. Let's talk about that Danny Elfman connection, though. So writer-director Matthew Bright. People might not know this. I don't want to sound like I'm too smart for school. Maybe a lot of you do know this. But he was one of the original founding members of the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo.
Right.
He also played Squeeze-It in Richard Elfman's Forbidden Zone.
Yeah.
He's the main character in that. So he wasn't part of the group when it became like a pop sensation that Danny Elfman took over, but there was a connection there. And so that's, I'm sure, how he got Danny Elfman to do the score. But he wanted to be a filmmaker more than a musician, just like Richard wanted to be a filmmaker more than he wanted to be.
He did.
You know, a performance art group with the Mystic Knights. He let Danny take over all of that. But he had done some interesting scripts before then for the Charles Band Company. He did a movie called Shrunken Heads.
Right.
Have you seen that one?
You know, I can't say I have because I don't recall it enough.
So he didn't direct it, but he wrote it, and it's crazy.
Oh, he wrote Shrunken Heads.
It's about kids who get their heads shrunk by a voodoo priest, and then their heads fly around town and try and like take their vengeance. It's crazy. It's kind of fun though. But I think the one that really is seminal in his career is in 1992, he made a movie called Gun Crazy with Drew Barrymore and James LaGrosse, which, if you think about it, it is kind of the proto Natural Born Killers. And it kind of has a lot of freeway themes in it.
Yeah.
Where Drew Barrymore is like this trailer park trash girl who kind of falls for a serial killer, and they go on a serial killing lamb together.
Right.
You know, I know that Tarantino already had his version of Natural Born Killers like written and kind of in the can. He and Roger Avery had like combined their forces to write the script, and Oliver Stone took it over. But 1992, I feel, is still early enough to add a lot of influences from Gun Crazy into Natural Born. I mean, it's trailer park Badlands is what it is, right? So being able to take that trailer park aesthetic, I don't know what Matthew Bright's history is with that, But that's kind of what Freeway turns into, where your Little Red Riding Hood is kind of like a trailer park trash girl. Vanessa Lutz, played wonderfully by Reese Witherspoon, who has a prostitute mom and a drug-addled, sexually abusive dad. And she goes kind of like on the lam on an adventure to go see grandma in Stockton, of all places.
There's so many little things that are just, this movie, there's a lot going on.
Right.
And many movies that are turned into, start one place and go to another, and you end up saying that's like 3 different movies. One of my favorites that people are clearly know it's 3 different movies because they didn't really have the script finished is one of my favorite guilty pleasure action movies, Tango and Cash.
Oh, yeah.
It is literally the first act, second act, and third act are all connected only because of the actors, but they're like 3 different movies. Freeway has like 6 different movies going on. It's a cop theme and genres. It's a cop story, and the cops hate each other. Well, or they don't get along or whatever. One's young, one's old. So you got the buddy cop thing. You got the road trip.
Yep.
You've got
women in prison.
Women in prison. And then you like the person that's on that journey, and you don't care where it goes. Oh, there's a prison escape.
Right.
And it's just like so many different, it's exactly what you said. There's so many different things going on, and you want to like, if you end up liking the protagonist, it's by design because you should. But she's not necessarily she's not a bad person. She's not a good person. She's one of those anti-heroes types that you were talking about.
She is. And I've got more to say on that in just a second. But I think the other genre that it kind of is, which I think is probably the biggest part of the movie that is easy to look over, is that it's a class warfare movie, right? And I really think it speaks to the idea of the dichotomy of what California represents. Right. The wealth is the wealthiest country or wealthiest state in the country. It's like the 4th largest global economy is California, right? Yet it has one of the highest homeless problems and poverty issues and things like that. And that's what this kind of represents, is that the real struggling class of California, let's say Vanessa and her family, even though her mom's a prostitute and Larry's a drug dealer and it's all kind of nasty, right?
Yeah.
She is preyed upon by an upper class citizen,
right?
By someone that would be considered like the upper crust, upper echelon, right? Yep. And in a way that kind of speaks to what the serial killer motivation is. Right. He calls her garbage people, right? Garbage, and that's people. The way that the mentality is, where it's like there really is no harmony in this environment that Matthew Bright is creating. He's saying that, look, the real predator, the real perverts are the people with influence.
Yeah.
And I think the cop dynamic works the same way, because who is the one that's the most like aggressively hateful towards Vanessa? It's the African-American cop.
Yeah.
Who, just like in Boys in the Hood, it's kind of like that reverse role of oppression. And meanwhile, the kind of struggling, probably alcoholic cop played by Dan Hedaya is the one who's a little bit more empathetic to her causes.
Is a little softer to her.
Right? So again, that plays in the class warfare movie. I think that has a lot to do with why the movie can feel so dirty and gross at times, but at the same time relevant, because it's playing a story that maybe unconsciously we already know that it's a class warfare thing, and the people who are the dirtiest, to have the most skeletons, are the people with wealth and influence.
You hit on something, and I want to bring it up, that they throw this in there. It's in the first act. It barely happens. It happens in a dramatic way, but it's such a small part of the film, then so much happens. You may forget that there's a Boys in the Hood scene where Chopper or
Bokeem Woodbine.
Yeah, Bokeem Woodbine is this small role, and they kill off the boyfriend, who's black, who's African American. And in this, there's also another genre. They throw it in there for 30 seconds, a gangland shooting.
Yeah. Early 1990s, John Singleton, Hughes Brothers type movie, right? Like he really does do a great job at taking all the cinema that we had seen up to this point and putting into one like I say, artsploitation movie.
It's really fascinating that the hero somehow, now it's a movie, so I'm gonna we already did the spoiler thing.
Yeah, spoilers.
So there is this ridiculous ending. The third act is just as preposterous as everything else, and then it amps it up. It's like she's the hero and she wins, but all these horrible things happened, and everybody pretty much dies.
Right.
All the main characters, of course, and then somehow she becomes friends with the cop, and there's this big smile at the end. You remember the last shot? It's Vanessa just smiling and laughing because she won.
So this is perfect. This takes me to the other point I was trying to make, and that is the genius of this script. If you are going to have such a terrible villain as Bob Wolverton, as Kiefer, he's a psychopath and he's a sociopath. He has no empathy and he has a lot of perversions that break our culture's taboo. I would like to think that it would break most cultures' taboos, maybe not. But the culture that we are in this country, in our generation, every taboo that's out there, he breaks.
Right.
You can't have a 15-year-old girl be the good guy and take him on and win unless she is fucked up as well.
Yeah.
She is a sociopath. She is a borderline psychopath. She has no empathy. It's all about her, even though she cares about her mom.
Right.
Even though she cares about Mrs. Sheets, her
Right.
Conchata Farrell from 2.5 Men. Even though she cares about those people, it's going to be her and her first. Even when Chopper, and she finds out that he's dead, 5 seconds of emotion, and then it's back to business. So I think that's the brilliance of the script, is you have to have a sociopathic, psychopathic hero to beat a sociopathic, psychopathic villain.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the part that gets talked about enough.
That's an excellent point. And to go even a little deeper into the iceberg, there is this absurdist comedy style of like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, or some just like the absurdity of it all, that this 15-year-old girl is the one that brings down the serial killer, and she's laughing in court and his face is all fucked up. Great makeup, by the way. If it was a normal movie, it would have won an award. Well, Kiefer would have won an award in like
performance
in the real world, but it would have been, the Academy would never give such a thing to such a movie, because like you said, it's just dirty and grimy and blah, but it's absurd. And you can't take it that seriously. It's like Heathers.
Yeah.
And we both love that picture, and I'm sure we're going to be discussing that movie down the line, because there's a similarity to the tone of Michael Lehman and Heathers in this
Daniel
picture.
Waters writing it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so I think you hit a good point here, because one of the things that makes this movie work is if you really like put the pedal down on the absurdity of a movie, like I said, it kind of helps forgive some of the taboo subjects. Tarantino's famous for it, right? It's like you can make the movie super, super, super bloody, but if you make it fun and have like a cool little soundtrack to it, and
you like somebody,
make some cartoonish imagery and humor to it, the absurdity dilutes the effect of whatever violence or taboo subject matter it is, and that's why this works. The fact that Brooke Shields of all people, plays the wife of Bob Wolverton, who defends him until the very end, until she finds out his dark secret.
Yeah.
And then she blows her brains out in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, they could have cast anybody in that role, right?
Yep.
Brooke Shields is a choice.
Yeah.
Brooke Shields is a choice of like even the prettiest, most iconic face of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Was able to defend a killer like him. That absurdity is what makes it even that much better. It's the punctuation of what the social class message of the movie is.
Yeah, it's quite well done. But yeah, it goes on that list too in a lot of the movies that we're discussing. in this series is most of them would never get revivals. They would never get made now. They go on this list of you can't make that now.
I'm not sure if you can make it now. I think it would have to be in a different package. Like for example, any episode of Euphoria is as creepy and weird as this movie, but it's done in a different way. It's done episodic. You're allowed to grow with these characters and learn to hate them. I think episodic TV and streaming has taken the place of movies like this because, roughly 90 minutes to, 2-hour movie isn't enough time to kind of grow with a character that's unlikable. You really have to make the economy of your film and how much time you have. You really have to be very intricate with how you do that. But when you have like 12 episode season, you can have peaks and valleys and ups and downs of how much I like this person, hate this person.
Yeah.
Like 1 minute I like Zendaya, the next minute I hate Sydney Sweeney, or I think you're always supposed to hate Sydney Sweeney, honestly. But I think that's where stories like this end up getting told.
Right.
Now is in episodic streaming, not so much in the theaters, because again, it's a business. Are we going to make money putting Freeway in the megaplex? No. That's why it has its place in time and where it was and where it is and how it's become a cult favorite. I want to talk about the prison segment because that's like the middle movie, right? That's like the whole center of the movie.
Yeah, you're right.
It's very Jonathan Demme, right? Women in prison, women in cages kind of thing. Yet also it does have a little like, let's say, blood in, blood out kind of stuff where you've got like the Chola gang. And it brings my two favorite characters of this movie to life. And that's Alana Ubach as Mosquita, the Chola gang leader, and then Brittany Murphy as the pyro cutter firebug. Both these women are two of my favorite actors. I feel like they both have a very similar power in characterization, right? They can play pretty much anything. And it's crazy where those two people outshine Reese Witherspoon in her movie.
Yeah.
Like that middle act is all about those two, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then they both kind of end up helping her out in the end.
Yeah.
But I think the prison segment of the movie is my favorite, mostly because of that dynamic of those three.
Right. I would say that sequence is my second favorite. The very first, my favorite scene is the very first scene
With Amanda Plummer?
The very first Vanessa meets Bob.
Okay.
That whole scene, which I'm sure took them days to shoot, and I'm sure they were on process trailer for days, and in that vehicle, if you rewatch that sequence and how it weaves together and the dialogue and how his true intentions are starting to seep through.
Right. That's the most Tarantino-esque dialogue of the movie, right? If you think about that scene of them having their banter and the wordplay and you see him slowly manipulating and gaslighting her, it's very similar to, let's say, the carriage scene at the start of Hateful Eight, right? Where it's a lot of dialogue, but it's laying the groundwork of who these people are and their personalities. That's where I feel that scene represents, because it's a lot of banter, right?
It is.
And at first you're like, wow, this is getting kind of wordy, really word heavy. But then when you see him flip the psychology on her, and even though she's a dumb 15-year-old who's illiterate,
right,
she sees through the bullshit because she comes from a world of bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? And that, I think, is where you start becoming a Vanessa fan, because up until that point, you're like, this girl's just a pain in the ass, and she's a foul mouth, and she's unlikable. But then you finally find who your hero is.
Yeah.
And when she does what she does, and gives him like the Glasgow grin with the gun, I think that's when you're like, okay, now I'm locked into this character.
I think that's right. And where all these things line up is typical, but it's like I said, it's just this roller coaster, and it doesn't really stop. And I mean, regardless if it's your cup of tea, it's not boring.
Right. And like everyone wants to say that like everyone knows that Tarantino rips off other stuff. I call it homage. He's a collage artist.
He calls it homage.
He's a collage artist, right? He takes what he likes and he makes his poster of it. It's funny because I saw a lot of stuff on the internet back when the new Maverick movie came out, Top Gun. Right. After he blows up the super jet and he stumbles into the diner and asks for water and he's all dusty and dirty. And everyone's like, oh, they totally ripped that off from The Bride, walking into the diner all dusty and dirty from 1-inch punching her way out of a grave. And I'm like, fools, they all got that from Vanessa Lutz walking into a diner all bloodied from just blowing Bob's face off and asking for water like it's no big thing. I think there is definitely a trail of collage and homage work there.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell people. Going back to that scene, though, man. Okay, I love this movie, but it's not without its flaws. I think anyone can admit that.
Yeah.
It's a low-budget movie. It's an indie movie, right? If there's one thing that really blows my mind, and if you've seen Amelie actually references it on one of her favorite things about movies is like the characters and the costumes, but she hates when drivers in movies don't watch the road.
Okay.
I love you, Kiefer, but Kiefer, you are like one of the worst acting drivers in cinema. For one, the whole time he just wiggles the steering wheel nonstop as if like that's how you drive a car. Again, sometimes I think there's a break in reality. I'm like, do these people even drive themselves? Second, he doesn't watch the road. He looks at her the entire time, right?
That's a great point.
And then here's the last part. Since you are a cinematographer and a production assistant, all the ins and outs of filmmaking, dude, what is wrong with the fact that even though they have that car in a trailer, the lighting is wrong? They're driving towards the sun, but they have a tarp over the car so they don't have to have the reflection. It bugs me every single time that you see the shadow of the car behind them, yet the sun is not in their face. They are being overshaded. And I get it. That's picking hairs. But we're here to talk about a movie, and those are my complaints about the movie is literally in that scene.
Well, again, it's like this, I say regular people who aren't us, who have seen
who don't care.
Well, I mean, it's like we're going after the nitpicky
stuff. But sometimes that nitpicky stuff is, if it's front and center, it can throw me off of a movie. Luckily, the movie that they do it in the first 20 minutes, so they have the rest of the movie to make up for it. But that does kind of bug me.
Again, I think one of the reasons why that didn't shock me, which I will go back and be like, oh yeah, he's right, because of course you're right. I was so locked into that sequence, I just didn't even realize. But the thing that really I like to talk about with my students is, what do you use to set the tone?
Right.
And Danny's little theme, like you said, I mean, I think it was a favor.
Yeah.
And he had plenty going on in the 90s.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted Danny Elfman type music. And you can't do a Tim Burton movie without Danny Elfman. So he was very busy. But he has done a lot of those like themes for films he hasn't done scores to, because the man is open to story and just creating.
Right.
But his tone that he sets with his little theme, I can hear it right now. For Freeway,
it's almost like a music box, kind of like a creepy music box going throughout the whole movie, which again, it plays on the idea of like innocence and childhood, but also some kind of like ominous presence in there. That's the way I think of music boxes. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's a crazy film. And then there's like I said, there's so many things you skip. So it's a movie that is designed to be watched more than once. But it's hard. It's hard to call something like that entertainment, because there's so many crazy things in it that are like.
And some people are going to hate it. Some people are not going to see the irony or the sarcasm behind it. They're going to see it at face value. And at face value, it's an ugly movie.
Yeah, it's
full of ugly people, and I think that's where am I a twisted freak because I like it? No. Am I a twisted freak because I like Freeway 2? Maybe, because Freeway 2 doubles down on the first one. Did you not know there was a Freeway 2?
I think I heard there was a sequel. But it was like it came out 20 years later.
Oh, no. It came out like 2 years later. Like, it came out very close, and it was straight to video.
Oh, shame on me. I did not.
Well, so here's the thing. It's very little known because it didn't have a huge release either. I found it at not even Blockbuster, like a mom and pop video store.
Gosh.
I'm like, I didn't even know Freeway had a sequel. It's Natasha Lyonne as the lead. Okay. So essentially, she's filling in for Vanessa.
Yeah.
And instead of Little Red Riding Hood, it is Hansel and Gretel.
Okay.
And the witch is Vincent Gallo as a
Wow.
Mexican nun bruja. I'm not going to fill in anymore, right? I've got it. You can borrow it. But yeah, Freeway 2.
Wow.
Confessions of a Trick Baby is the subtitle.
Oh my gosh.
Well, let's finish it. So let's finish off this conversation with kind of like the legacy of this, okay? So it premiered at Sundance 1996. It was nominated for a grand jury, but like we said, it did not have solid distribution.
Right.
It was put on HBO first and then subsequently through physical media as people found it. However, it did get pretty decent reviews upon release. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars in his personal review. And we haven't covered yet on my podcast, Back to the Balcony, but it got 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. And that's a surprising one. I haven't done that one yet, but Roger was fans of movies like this because he's a...
Yeah, Gene did not like, usually.
Gene normally didn't like movies like this because he was like, who is this for? Gene was the one who was like, slasher movies are anti-feminist. Slasher movies are terrible for people. We should outlaw slasher movies.
Yeah.
But somehow the nuance of this actually sunk through to him.
Right.
So it did get some legacy there. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 76% out of 42 certified critics. And right now on IMDb, it's sitting at a 6.9 out of 10. So for a little movie, indie movie like this, which you can't talk about this era without saying that there were so many movies that were knockoffs of each other, right? So I think people started getting a little bit, let's make some twisted movies like Freeway. None of them were any good. Just like people try to make a bunch of Hitman movies after Pulp Fiction. Not a lot of them are any good.
Yeah.
So I think legacy-wise, this movie definitely hit. And Reese still speaks very highly of it. She loves this movie. She likes her performance. I think if she would have found more scripts like this that were good, we might have had a little bit more of the indie darling Reese before we got Legally Blonde Reese.
Right.
You know? But I feel like later on in her career with movies like Wild or doing Big Little Lies on HBO, she was more comfortable going back to a little bit more subversive material. Right. And good for her.
And like you said, legacy-wise, Kiefer did so much after that he doesn't talk about this one as much.
He still wants to be Jack Bauer.
his life became 24 in the 2010s, and that's fine. I guess he's in a little bit of trouble now, but they still live in this world where I think every once in a while they look back fondly. I doubt he would ever do, he would want Freeway to come back, but I wonder what they think about some of these smaller pictures that they agreed to do. And knowing what it was, but I thought he did a great job in his performance. I believe it's one of his better performances but like you said, it's so, I don't know if it's harder or easier for certain actors to sign on and say, I always want to be the good guy. I never want to be a villain. I don't know. That doesn't compute to me because obviously there's actors like Kiefer, Kevin Bacon, and many, many actors who are, want that variety.
I think
some just want to be the good guy.
I think a lot of people want to be the good guy. I think what gives them the ammunition to demand being the good guy is box office.
Agreed.
Like that's why The Rock and Jason Statham and those guys like, I can't die in my movies and I have to be the good guy and I have to win every fight. Box office is what juices that up.
Yeah, you're right.
But then there's actors who just are looking for the role, right? They're looking for that opportunity to play someone bad, or someone interesting, maybe not even bad, right? Because I feel like if this was a role for a young actor, I think they'd be afraid of getting typecast in this role forever.
Right.
Perfect example, Mark Harmon, when he played Ted Bundy in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
It took him like a decade to get out of that because people would look at him and think Ted Bundy, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of people that get stuck in that, he's that serial killer, right? But when you're an already established actor, you can be a little bit more pliant with what you want to do in terms of characters. People already know they love you. You can play romantic lead. You can play a comedy. I love Kiefer's career. It's so off the wall. The fact that he was making all those like weird crime movies in the late 80s. He's got that one with he paired up with Lou Diamond Phillips a few times. Like I love all of the randomness of his career, and then playing some sinister characters later on. Nothing wrong with that. He surprisingly hasn't done a lot of horror as of late. I think Mirrors is the last one that I think.
Yeah, there isn't much.
But then Kevin Bacon is like all in on horror, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's like, let Kevin do the horror for a while, and I'll
Kevin
back off.
Kevin's back with a vengeance. He's doing a lot of stuff, so it's cool.
He's also got a cool social media presence, and I think that helps. I have no idea what's going on with Kiefer right now. Like maybe he's just gun shy, but
well, like I said, he got arrested recently. So
who hasn't gotten arrested for weird shit? Like I get it. But at the same time, we've seen that happen, and we've seen people come out of it.
Oh yeah, this is one. This isn't like an Ezra Miller situation where he's going to be canceled.
Right.
I mean, Kiefer makes mistakes. He's a human being.
Right.
One role I wanted to bring up that is just so left field, and it's like, here's Freeway, and then here's Dark City. Dark City's another twisted
with his like Peter Lorre
sci-fi.
I love Dark City, and I like his performance in that.
And his performances are all over the place. He's more than just Jack Bauer, and I love him as an actor. So I mean, there's so much good acting in Freeway that, just like you said, Brittany Murphy, God bless her, she didn't have a long career. No. Rest in peace. She was great in this picture, and but it's like like you said, every scene in Freeway is just has this weirdness, offness to it, and then she's making out with the stepdad, and that's in the first like 7 minutes of the movie, and it's just weird. It's just this off tone. Every scene is just weird.
It's supposed to, I think, elicit the response of we are in a realm that we wouldn't want us or our children to grow up in.
Oh yeah, it's quite a world.
It's quite a world, but that's just life for so many people.
You're right.
I don't mind a movie holding up a reflective mirror to what society likes to ignore. And I think that's what's biting us in the ass as a country right now, is that we've ignored so many things of what people do that now that it's actually affecting people's lives, now we have to have a little bit more interest in it, like homelessness, class warfare, the upper 1% versus the 99%, what's a living wage these days? All that stuff makes movies like this, which is now 30 years old, more relevant, right? I think we just, that's why I love cinema. Because it really is more than just a history book. Right. It's like an anthropological study of this movie did not hit as big as it does now back then because we were more comfortable back then.
Right.
But you take that comfort away, now things that did not make sense when you first saw it make all the sense in the world now. People grow, society grows, but the film always stays the same. It doesn't change. It's society that changes, and that's what changes our reflection on the movie.
And my last button is we should be more like Vanessa and be able to point out the wolves because they're running the. I know this isn't a political podcast, but they're running the government right now. The wolves are in the hen house, just destroying everything.
Everyone's being abused right now.
Everyone's being abused. Yeah, that's a good point.
And just like they talk about with victim blaming and stuff like that, there's people that are being abused right now that don't even know it. And if anything, they're being complicit by like going along with it. Like they're seeing the suffering of other people. Yet instead of being a Vanessa, they decide to be a Brooke Shields and it's going to bite them in the ass. So anyway.
So hopefully we don't, go boom.
Go boom. All right. Well, this is a great conversation, man. Thank you so much. This is our first one of these. So on our next conversation, which will be out maybe like in about a month or so, we are going to be covering Adam Rifkin's The Dark Backward, which is, I can't believe I haven't done this movie on the Cultworthy.
Super deep cut.
And I would love to get him on the show sometime because like when he first announced that they were going to do a restoration of it, this was like several years ago.
Oh, okay.
I started sharing a bunch of it and he like followed me and liked my posts and stuff like that. So like hopefully maybe we could have a conversation with him someday. But The Dark Backward with Judd Nelson and Bill Paxton, it is a movie. Let's just say that. But I think it's on Tubi right now. It was very hard to find years ago.
It is pretty hard to find.
But I think it's out there now. So if you like the dark and twisted stuff that we're talking about with Freeway, just wait till the dark backwards.
Twisted.
All right, man. Great conversation. Thank you so much for coming today. Talk to you soon. So you can find me, Antonio, over at the Cultworthy Cinema Podcast, thecultworthy.com. Mario over here, Salty Horror Productions. Where can people find your content? Okay, so Instagram, MarioPD65. On Instagram, I need to do more work with that. And then Salty Horror Productions on Facebook, just Salty Horror Productions. And I'm just usually reposting things daily on this kind of thing. But thank you for the reminder. I need to do more on Instagram. And you can follow him on YouTube where you can see all of his short films. He's such a big pillar in the Salt Lake City independent film community. So I'm glad to have him a friend and an occasional co-host. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.